Let's start with the basics. Social distancing is avoiding close contact with people you don't live with to slow the spread of COVID-19. So we're actually talking about physical distancing. So let's call it that. The first rule of the Physical Distancing Club, stay 1.5 metres apart. That includes when you're queuing up. People, why? Because of these bad boys.
There are two main ways this virus can spread. The first is through contact transmission. The second is what we call droplet transmission. These droplets can't travel very far. So that means that if somebody sneezes or coughs and you're a safe distance away from them, you're not going to be infected. So that is why social distancing really works.
Second rule, stay home when you can. That means working from home if possible and avoiding social gatherings and non-essential travel.
We declare someone a close contact or at risk if they've spent 15 minutes face-to-face with an individual who's infected or 2 hours in the same room.
So what is and isn't okay to do in our everyday lives? This is where it gets into a bit of a grey area. We're being asked to exercise social responsibility and use our common sense. Here's what the experts say.
If you need to be exercising outside, really try and do it at a distance from everybody else. You know, go for a cycle on your own or go for a run on your own.
You can order takeout food, but again, it's about keeping that distance. So ideally, pay for it online and then you can just ask the driver to drop it at your front door.
If you don't need to be catching public transport, don't. Certainly try and avoid wherever possible touching the handrails, touching buttons on doors.
If you want to take your children to the playground, then do it at a time when there's nobody else around and make sure to the best of your ability they're not touching their face when they're playing on the play equipment and that they're washing their hands straight away afterwards.
Any gathering, whether it be a barbecue or other social gathering, I think it's pretty clear now that should be avoided basically at all costs.
Finally, what happens if we don't nail this physical distancing thing? An infected person with COVID-19 spreads it to, on average, between 2.2 and 3.5 people. It doesn't sound like much, but the flow-on effects are huge.
Every infected person can potentially infect, we think, about 3 other people at the moment, and each of those 3 can then infect another 3, and if you do the maths on that, 10 layers down the track, you've got almost 60,000 people potentially infected from that one person.
This diagram doing the rounds on social media right now shows the difference small decisions like working from home or avoiding travel can make.
This is probably one of the most important things you will be asked to do in your lifetime. Every single person just needs to make these small sacrifices to ensure that we can maintain our society and our way of life.
That was so helpful for me just then, really, what we just saw. I've been struggling not really knowing what I shouldn't do. Like this morning I went out, took my boys for a ride and I grabbed a coffee and it was next to a park and I'm like, should I be grabbing this coffee? Should the boys be going to the park even though no one else was there?
I agree, Mons. I feel like any grey areas are not helpful right now.
No.
We just need full list of what we can and can't do. Yeah. Nobody's navigated this world before. We don't know what we should be doing. We want to be socially responsible. Just be clear, lead us, tell us what you want us doing, what you don't want us doing, and then we can follow suit. But leaving it up to us to guess when this is not something we've navigated before, I think is really hard.
Yeah, you're kind of asking people to make decisions when we're not actually qualified to make them.
No, and you're watching different things overseas too, so you're not sure at what place we're at, and if they're not even going to the park in Italy, should we be going to the... Like, it's...
And different countries are at different stages, so Italy's obviously
of course
in a big situation. So they weren't... Originally you were going to the park, now you're not, there's all that sort of stuff. New Zealand's probably the most interesting comparison because they're politically like us, and they've been much more strident on it. But apart from that, it's the dictatorships that have done this really well. China just said, that's it, and they just forced people into isolation, and now they're starting to get on top of it.
I'm not suggesting some of their methods were appropriate.
No. But the point really is you can't be too careful. Like if you're in doubt, just don't do the thing.
Yeah. No, but I think that's easier said than done. You've got young children. You're going, I need to get out at some point, otherwise I'm going to go crazy. Is taking them to the park for 10 minutes socially irresponsible, or is that okay? I feel like the whole just don't do it if you're not sure is not as easy. It's easier said than done.
I get it's easier said than done, but understand this, and this is just my view, but we're at a difficult time. Well, you're going to have to do really difficult things. That's the situation we're in, and we kind of just have to acknowledge that reality, don't we?
Do you think people would be relieved if we just went into absolute shutdown?
Yeah.
I
would.
think they would.
Yeah.
I think they
I would.
I feel like we
Yeah.
feel like we're half pregnant at the moment.
And I think it'll be incredibly hard for many different reasons, and mental health will be a huge issue. Hence, the go out for the walk around the dog or see some sunlight. All of that, I think, is why people are still clinging on to it, because they're scared and they're worried.